Welcome to my channel, Black Knight Scary. I'm so glad you found me. Please make sure to leave a like on the video as it helps my channel grow and reach more viewers. Enjoy the fresh content and subscribe now. Remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss a thing in the future. To have your scary experience featured on an upcoming video, email the link in the description box below. Thank you all for listening. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these truly terrifying home break-in horror stories. Story number 1. The silence of 4 a.m. was usually a comfort, a deep, heavy blanket woven from exhaustion and the knowledge that my 10-month-old Leo was finally asleep. As a single mother, these were the hours I cherished more, sometimes reading, sometimes just staring at the ceiling, waiting for my own mind to shut down. Tonight, though, the silence felt different, thicker somehow, like it was holding its breath. I was curled up on the sofa, a half-read paperback slipping from my fingers, when I heard a sound, a faint scraping sound from downstairs. My first thought was that the house was settling, or maybe the old pipes groaning. I'd lived in this place for over 5 years, and I know all the house's quirks, but then came a softer click, distant and deliberate, like a lock being tested. My breath hitched. My heart began its frantic tattoo against my ribs. I sat bolt upright, straining my ears. Nothing for a beat. Then a floorboard creaked directly below me. Not a random settling creak, but the slow, deliberate groan of a footstep. He was inside. A cold, sharp, and immediate dread seized my entire body. My mind screamed Leo's name. My baby was upstairs, in his crib, innocent and utterly defenseless. My body, fueled by a primal terror, moved before I could consciously think. I didn't bother with lights, navigating by the faint glow of the street lamp filtering through the blinds. Every shadow seemed to stretch and writhe into monstrous shapes. The stairs were torture. Each creak under my bare foot sounded like a gunshot in the oppressive quiet. I reached the landing, pausing, listening. The sounds were no longer downstairs. They were coming from the hallway directly outside Leo's room. My room, too. But I barely registered that. Only Leo mattered. A guttural growl escaped me, a low, animalistic sound of pure fury and fear. It wasn't loud enough to wake Leo, but it was enough to propel me forward. I pushed open the nursery door, my hand shaking so violently the knob rattled. He was there, a dark silhouette against the faint glow of the nightlight hunched over Leo's crib. He had Leo in his arms. My son, my tiny, precious boy, was whimpering softly, still mostly asleep, a little hand batting idly at the man's shoulder. "Get away from him!" The words tore through my throat, ragged and raw. I didn't recognize my own voice. The man spun around. He was tall, bulky, a vague shape in the dim light. I couldn't make out his face, only the glint of something in his eyes, something predatory and cold. He clutched Leo tighter, pulling him into his chest. "No!" I lunged, desperate, irrational surge of adrenaline making me feel weightless. I didn't think about his size, his strength, only about getting my son back. My fingers curled into claws, raked against his forearm, catching skin. He hissed a sharp intake of breath. He shifted Leo to one arm, a cruel, efficient motion, then swung his other hand. A dull thud echoed as something hard connected with my jaw. Pain exploded, blinding me for a second, sending me stumbling backwards. My head hit the wall with a sickening crack, stars bursting behind my eyes. I tasted blood, metallic and hot on my tongue, but the pain was a distant thing. Leo's cries, now louder, more frantic, cut through the haze. My baby was scared. My baby needed me. I pushed myself off the wall, ignoring the throbbing agony in my head. He was already turning, making for the door. "You won't take him!" I bellowed, launching myself again. This time I aimed lower, tackling his legs. We went down in a heap, a grunt escaping him as I slammed into his shins. Leo was dislodged, tumbling from his grasp onto the soft rug beside the crib. He screamed a piercing, heartbroken sound that tore through me. I scrambled, trying to get to Leo, but the man was faster. He rolled, pinning me to the floor, a heavy knee pressing into my stomach, knocking the wind out of me. His hand clamped over my mouth, smelling faintly of stale cigarettes and something else. He rasped, his voice low, gravelly whisper that sent shivers down my spine.
"Just going to take the baby. You won't get hurt if you stay quiet."
His words ignited a fresh, scorching wave of fury. He wanted my son. He thought he could just come into my home and take him. My teeth found his palms, sinking in with all the strength I could muster. He bellowed a primal roar of pain, snatching his hand away. I used the precious second of release, bucking my hips, twisting anything to throw him off. My hand closed around the small, heavy porcelain elephant that usually sat on Leo's dresser, a gift from my grandmother. Without thinking, I brought it down hard on what I hoped was his head. A sickening crunch. He cried out a strangled yelp and recoiled, clutching his head. Blood, dark and vicious, bloomed across his fingers. He stumbled backwards, eyes wide with pain and something that looked like disbelief. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected a mother's rage. He reeled, bumping into the crib, then turned and fled. I heard his heavy, hurried footsteps pounding down the stairs, then the muffled thud of the front door. Silence returned, but it was shattered by Leo's terrifying wails. I scrambled across the floor, my limbs aching, my head throbbing, and gathered my son into my arms. He was shaking, sobbing, burying his face into my neck. I held him so tight, rocking him, whispering reassurances, tasting the salt of my own tears mixing with the metallic tang of blood from my lip. My house was my sanctuary, and I felt violated. The air was thick with the lingering stench of the intruder, a smell I knew I would never forget. My jaw ached, my head throbbed, but I barely registered at all. All I could feel was Leo's warmth, his unsteady heartbeat against my chest. My fingers still trembling, fumbled for my phone. The 911 operator's calm voice was a stark contrast to the hurricane raging inside of me. I recited my address, my voice hoarse, Leo's soft cries still echoing in the silent, broken night. The danger was past, but the horror had just begun. I knew with chilling certainty that I would never feel safe again. Every creak, every shadow, every unexpected sound would be a reminder of the man who tried to steal my son, leaving me with a fear that would forever claw at the edges of my peace. Story number 2. The muted thrum of the subwoofer vibrated through the floorboards. Alex and I were deep into a Call of Duty match, the kind where every kill felt like a tiny victory, every death a personal affront. 22 years old, Friday night, pizza boxes stacked beside the couch. Life was simple, comfortable, and predictable. Then came the knock. Not a polite tap, but a forceful, deliberate thud against the front door. We paused, controllers hovering. "Delivery?" Alex mumbled, though we hadn't ordered anything else. Before I could answer, another knock echoed, this one sharper, from the back of the house, our kitchen door. My blood ran cold. The comfortable hum of the game faded, replaced by the frantic thumping in my chest.
"Alex,"
I whispered.
"get your phone."
We crept towards the living room window, pulling back a sliver of the blind. Two hulking figures stood on the porch, their faces obscured by the dim porch light and the hoods of their dark jackets. Simultaneously, I caught a glimpse of movement through the kitchen window. Two more, equally ominous, silhouetted against the fence. 4 of them.
"They're surrounding us,"
I choked out, a wave of nausea washing over me. That's when the first crash came. A sickening splinter of wood, the front door groaning off its hinges, then another deafening crack from the back. It wasn't a break-in. It was an explosion sound and violence. In a matter of seconds, our sanctuary was breached.
"Go, my room!"
I yelled, shoving Alex towards the back of the house, away from the collapsing front door. He didn't hesitate, scrambling towards the narrow hallway. I grabbed the heavy cast iron fireplace poker, just as the first man burst through the front entryway. A dark, featureless void where a face should be. He was big and hulking. Adrenaline surged, hot and bitter. I swung wildly, a desperate, clumsy arc. The poker connected with something hard, his arm, maybe his shoulder. The man grunted a guttural sound, but didn't falter, reaching for me. I ducked under his grasp, the stale scent of his clothes hitting me, and I sprinted for the hallway. Alex was already fumbling with the lock on my bedroom door. Another man, leaner but just as menacing, was just feet behind him, having clearly come from the kitchen. He lunged and Alex, with a terrified yelp, slammed the door just as the man's hand reached his shirt. The lock clicked, but the door shuddered under a heavy impact from the other side.
Hold it!
I screamed, throwing my weight against the door. The thuds intensified, the wood groaning, splintering. We were trapped. The terror was overwhelming, a cold, sharp blade against my throat. This wasn't a game. This was real, and it was horrifying. These men wanted in, and we had nothing but a cheap lock and our quickly failing breath to stop them. Story number 3. The isolation of this old cabin deep in the Montana woods had always been its charm. Tonight, it was its terror. I woke to a chill that had nothing to do with the pre-dawn air. Something felt wrong. The front door, which I swore I'd locked, was ajar. My heart hammered. A quick sweep confirmed my dread. The old wooden chest where I kept my grandfather's watch was open, empty. My laptop, usually on the kitchen counter, was gone. My wallet, which I'd left by the sink, was also gone. He'd been here while I slept. Then I saw it, tacked to the kitchen table with a rusty nail. A folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. The scrawled letters seemed to mock me.
Sorry I missed you, Josh. I have to kill you tonight. See you soon.
Panic seized me, raw and primal. The man was still here. He had to be. I tore through the small cabin, a frantic dervish of fear. Under beds, behind the sagging curtains, inside the musty closets, nothing. Every shadow seemed to turn into a shape. Every creak of the old wood sounded like footsteps. My breath hitched in my throat as I ran through the possibilities, my mind racing a mile a minute. He couldn't have just vanished.
Think, Josh, think.
I muttered, my voice hoarse. I checked everywhere. Everywhere. A cold dread seeped into my bones. The crawl space. I never used it, rarely even thought about it. The access panel was a small, almost invisible square in the floor of my bedroom closet. It was the one place I'd forgotten to check. I dropped to my knees, feeling the grit of the old floorboards under my palms. The panel was slightly ajar. My blood ran cold. He was still here. I scrambled up, backing away from the closet, my eyes glued to that dark opening, expecting him to burst out. Moments stretched into an eternity. Nothing. Had he just been waiting to strike, or had he left just to mess with my head? I couldn't have been more wrong. I must have drifted off into an exhausted, fear-ridden sleep. The next thing I knew, it wasn't the chill of the cabin that woke me, but a palpable presence, a darkness that felt heavier than the night itself. My eyes snapped open. A figure stood beside my bed, a hulking shadow against the faint moonlight filtering through the window. He was so close I could feel the cold radiating off of him.
Josh,
A raspy whisper slithered into my ear.
it's time.
He didn't know. He didn't know that my hand was already under my pillow, gripping the familiar cold steel of my Sig Sauer P320. My thumb found the slide release. My fingers wrapped around the grip. Without a sound, I lined up the aim. Then, with a deliberate echoing click, I loaded a round into the chamber. The sound, sharp and undeniably lethal in the silent room, was all it took. The shadow flinched, a ragged gasp tearing from his throat. Before I could even register pulling the trigger, he recoiled, turning on his heel. I heard the thud of his feet hitting the floor, then the frantic scramble towards the front door. A second later, the door slammed open, then shut. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I lay there, pistol still aimed at the empty space where he'd stood, heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. He was gone. The cold sweat clinging to my skin was the only proof it hadn't been a nightmare. I'd survived. For now. Thank you all for listening to the very end of this video. Please make sure if you're new to the channel, guys, that you subscribe now. Turn that notification bell on so you don't miss a story in the future. To have your true scary story featured on an upcoming video, email the link in the description box below. Like I always say, stay safe out there.